Hello, this is Greg Gorgoni with the Pineapple Academy. It's a pleasure to introduce Todd Hollander today. Hi, Todd.
Hey, Greg.
How are you?
Great. Thanks for having me today.
Oh, it's a pleasure having you. So please tell us a bit about yourself and what your role is and what you're doing.
Sure. Well, my name's Todd Hollander. I've been in the hospitality industry for 36 plus years, and I am currently the Director of Dining and Event Services at John Knox Village in Lee Summit, Missouri, and I've been here for 14 years.
Wow, that's impressive. Tell us a little bit about John Knox Village. How big an operation is it?
John Knox Village is one of the top 3 largest single property life care communities in the country. We have about 1,500 residents throughout the full continuum, which means we have independent living residents, assisted living residents, skilled, hospice, home health. We have full services available for any level of care that older adults need. John Knox Village is a full life care community. We're one of the 3 largest single property life care communities in the country. And what a life care community is, it's all levels of care for older adults. So we have independent living homes, apartments, cottages. We have assisted living memory care, skilled nursing, as well as hospice services. And actually we have home health services as well, where we'll go out to the community and offer residents or our clients the opportunity to stay in their homes longer. We have about 1,500 residents throughout the continuum.
So how many food and beverage outlets do you have?
We have 6 kitchens and 9 concepts of food and beverage throughout the continuum.
Well, that certainly is challenging.
It is a challenge, but fortunately I have a really great team to work with, and we offer great services and great food for our residents.
And I will attest to that. I've eaten here several times, and the food's wonderful here.
Thank you.
So how did you get into food and beverage to begin with?
Well, it's kind of a funny story. Back when I was 2 weeks before I turned 16, I got home from school, and my mom said, "All right, Todd, put on your coat and tie, and we're going to go out." I go, "Oh, okay, we having a mom and son date night day?" And she goes, "Oh no, it's time for you to get a job. You're going to be 16 in 2 weeks. You need to start earning a living. Do you want to work grocery stores or do you want to work restaurants?" And I chose restaurants. So my first job was in St. Louis, Missouri at a family-owned restaurant, and I was hired in as a busboy. And then about 3 months later, I was promoted to head busboy, in which I hired, fired, and trained all the other busboys.
Wow.
Yeah, it was quite an experience, and Harry was a great mentor, really got me a lot of knowledge, taught me the way of the business, the personal skills, and I loved his interaction with all of his regular clients.
Right.
So that really set my career off on that path.
Yeah, there's always that special person in the beginning of your career that kind of really inspires you and keeps you moving.
Yes, absolutely, and that's when I really discovered that I had the restaurant business in my blood. When I worked there all through college, actually, but after I graduated high school, I was thinking I was going to be going into computer science. Right. Tried to fool myself a little bit and wanted a more regular, steady job. And that didn't work out too well for me because my math skills weren't quite there.
Right.
And I just found myself going back into hospitality. So at the University of Missouri, I wanted to be a little bit more well-rounded and set myself aside. So I got a degree in general studies where I'm 6 credits short of an individual degree in psychology, business management, and hospitality management. So that really set me aside and helped me become a little bit more well-rounded.
That's fantastic. That really is. And so when you came out of college, what was your next move?
Well, actually, my senior year of college, I helped the Alumni Center move from its its current location then to a brand new building in which they had banquet spaces and a club-like restaurant. So I was the opening front of house manager there, in which I really got to build that up, order the china, glassware, silverware, and really be involved in that concept from the ground up. And there, Tom Guthrie was a great mentor and kind of showed me the business planning and how to manage the finances a little bit more. And then I really started to understand the leadership skills that I really needed to be successful. So that was a great move for me, and right time, right place, and it worked out very, very well for me.
after that experience, I mean, how long did you stay on the hospitality side, the restaurant side?
In typical fashion during that time, about every 3 to 5 years, you either moved up or moved out. They ended up eliminating my position after 3 years and kind of breaking it apart and giving it to some students in their hospitality program. So I moved back to St. Louis and worked hotels for a little bit. Did not like hotels. The hours were horrendous. Literally worked 114 hours 2 weeks in a row, and that's when I had enough. And then I decided I wanted to do something different. Was long distance dating a nice woman in Kansas City and moved to Kansas City, worked at Chi-Chi's, and then every 3 to 5 years again kind of worked my way around. Chi-Chi's, I was the youngest GM in the corporation, and then went to a grocery store for a little bit, went back to Chi-Chi's, went to a couple other restaurants, and then at Jose Pepper's, one of my regulars was Rodney McBride, who's the Vice President of Health Services here. He and I became friends. I had a relative at the time that was the human resource manager, and I found out that John Knox right down the street was looking for a restaurant director. And I applied and got the job, and thankfully I did, and here I am 14 years later.
Geez, good for you. So when you first came into the organization, you were responsible just for one outlet or the overall food and beverage?
When I first started, we only had 4 concepts, and someone was running Skilled, and then we had 4 concepts, 3 fairly small concepts and 1 really large concept. And so that's where it was when I started. And since then, we have obviously built it up to a lot more, and now it's a whole dining program under one umbrella throughout the continuum.
Can you explain a little bit the difference between why Skilled is kind of like broken out? You mentioned, you had the 4 outlets and then Skilled was kind of separate. Can you explain why that would be?
Sure. Healthcare is a little bit different to work with, although now that I've been in it for a couple of months, it's all just a mindset. And I found that it's really not that different. But healthcare, you're dealing with some mechanical softs, so some purees. There's a little bit of tube feeding here, but we're not a true hospital, so we only have a couple patients that we have to worry about on tube feedings over at Skilled, and that's quite a little bit different than restaurant work. The other thing to consider is 14 years ago in this industry, skilled nursing was your typical what I call scoop and plop food, where it's all steam table and you just scoop it and plop it on the plate and send it out. Not a lot of plate presentation or real quality of food. And that's all changed since then. And I like to think that my team has really helped the industry really see the need to go more restaurant style on all levels of care.
I think one of the other things we should distinguish is in Skilled, the residents there have a prescription of sorts from a medical professional, and the registered dietitians and their meal plans are tailored to their individual medical needs. So it's a little bit different. So the regulations around that are a bit tighter and a little bit more directed for medical situation than, say, a hospitality.
Yep. So really, and that applies to assisted living too. When I started here, our assisted living was a resident care facility, so it wasn't quite the higher level as assisted living. But you find those things there as well, and we have a registered dietitian, and we had a company we contracted with, and we've since brought our own dietitian in-house. So you do find a lot of those medical diets and a little bit higher need from that aspect.
So the opportunity to get into senior living from the hospitality side of our industry was really the restaurants for the independent living and stuff. So that transition was probably more natural for you at the beginning because you're dealing with alcohol and a la carte menus and full service.
Absolutely, and I brought alcohol to the village in a professional, appropriate way, and actually got a lot of pushback from residents at the time that didn't want us to have bars. So we started out slow. I noticed that there were some empty bottles in trash barrels and stuff on, from resident rooms, and saw that as an opportunity. But that kind of goes off tangent a little bit. My whole career working in some family-owned restaurants, the grocery store, the hotel, really led me to this cusp of being able to have the skill set to do this. I was working a lot of hours in retail restaurants, as is typical in the industry, and my kids were a little younger, so I really wanted to find that place that I can really be home, but get that balance of creativity. And the one thing that I really enjoy about this industry as a whole is the relationships. Right. Whereas if you're in a fast food restaurant, you have about a minute to make that relationship with your customer or your guest. Right. When you go into a full service restaurant, you have about 45 minutes to make that connection. Here, it's a lifetime. Right. And that's a blessing and a curse, if you will, in this healthcare industry. Right. Over the 14 years, I've lost some of my best friends. There's stories upon stories I can share with you on close relationships that I've had with residents, and it's really hard watching them age in place. Right. But the learning that you get is incredible. So on my very first week of working here, there was a gentleman that would come into Place's restaurant every morning, and I would talk to him. His name was George Russell. And I knew I kind of recognized the name, and I couldn't quite place it. And we were talking, every morning for about a month. I finally Googled him, and I found out that he was the president of the University of Missouri colleges, of the universities. So I went home and I looked at my diploma, and sure enough, there's George Russell's signature on my diploma from college. So I brought that in the next day to him, and sure enough, he just got this huge smile. I thanked him for my education. And it was just really a great moment, really, really neat. And then, as years have gone by, unfortunately, he moved to assisted living, and I would keep in touch with him. And by that time, I had a relationship with his sons, and very friendly when they came and visited and all of that. And then George, unfortunately, had passed years ago. But that relationship is something I will always remember and cherish. And just some of the stories, another resident of ours used to jump trains. Had no idea that was real. I thought it was just in the movies. Right. But he would wait for the trains to pass and slow down, and he would jump from one train to the other to shovel the coal. Just amazing, amazing stories.
Yeah, it's amazing. A lot of younger people, I don't think necessarily appreciate what older folks can give to them in terms of a perspective, great stories, learning moments, and things. We all seem to be caught up in the internet and social media, but at the end of the day, it's real people who is actually more enjoyable to hear about and connect with than your phone.
Absolutely. Most people in this industry, that's why they're here,
that's
is
right.
For that people, and you can't get greater connection than in a retirement community like this.
Right. No, that's really interesting. I've said in the past, the biggest difference between senior living and working in hospitality is, in hospitality, it's sort of a transactional type action. And as you said, in senior living, you're dealing with, you're actually in someone's home, and you're part of taking care of their needs from a food service point of view, and for their nutrition, but also, to entertain and give them socialization and opportunity.
Absolutely. We're an extension of their kitchens. Right. So the other benefit, like I mentioned, being able to be home with my own family, we're busy during the week, because on the weekend, just like anyone else in the world, they go out to other restaurants and they go out for the weekend. Right. Even though they may be retired, that's still the trend. Right. So we're just an extension, and busy during the week. The restaurant that's open the latest here is 8 o'clock. So everyone is out by 9. And right. You can go home and enjoy family, or for our younger staff, of course, socialize a little bit more, right. As you typically would on the weekends.
Right. Yeah, I remember back in the days when I first started getting into this, I was in restaurants, the line would start shutting down around 11, and then we start cleaning up, and by the time you get out of work, it's almost 1 o'clock. And then we would go out.
Right, then you go out and you start your night.
And it's 3 o'clock in the morning. But you can do that when you're early 20s, but as you get older, that's not quite a a sustainable lifestyle. Let's put it that way.
It's not, and that's why this is so great. I mean, here you start breaking down the line at 8 o'clock, and it's set up in such a way you're out by 8:45.
Right.
So it really is works well for if you have family or if you're looking to have a little bit more. I don't want to say laid back, because we're certainly not laid back. It's fairly fast paced. It's just a different pace that really is comfortable.
Yeah, I found that too when I moved from hospitality into healthcare. You see a lot of the same things that you saw before, but it's just a different pace. It's as engaging and as busy, but there isn't that franticness that sometimes you experience, in a hotel, environment and when things get really, and you don't have the ebbs and flows. I mean, that used to drive me crazy when I was younger. You'd have these really quiet periods and then you have these bursts but in senior living and healthcare, it's more of a steady, flow,
Well, we do see some of those ebbs and flows. So, I mean, there's times that we're certainly a little bit busy and we have seasonal. We all joke, when it snows, we can't shovel the hallways fast enough because even though they're indoors and under a roof, our restaurants are still slower during bad weather, which is really funny, but it's just human nature.
Right.
One of the other great benefits of working in this type of industry, this retirement living, is what corporate restaurant would I be able to go and be able to have a team that can create all these different concepts? We really have the flexibility and availability to be creative, allow our cooks to be creative, be part of the menu planning process, really enhance their skills, and really be on that creative side of things. We don't have a corporation dictating what the menus are. I wouldn't be able to be in any other environment where we can really create multiple concepts and have the teams truly be involved in that.
But once you set a concept, I mean, you stick with it. So it's not like we're talking about, 1 week we're a fish place and the next week we're, doing a steak menu. So you try to use your outlets to create that variety for the residents, but each of the concepts tries to stay true to their identity.
Correct. Each concept definitely stays true to their own environment and their own concept. And we change the menus. About 25% of the menu is changed quarterly because residents do eat here more often than you would a typical restaurant. And again, that lends to being able to be creative as long as you're staying within that theme.
What involvement do the residents have with the menu selections and, hours and just, different things? How do you engage with them to find out, and how do you, respond to that?
Residents have everything to do with it. We include residents in food groups that take place monthly for the different kitchens so that they are able to provide feedback on specials that we've run. We run daily specials as well. We can get feedback on trends. Little funny story is about 10 years ago, we tried lettuce wraps at one of the restaurants.
Right.
No one liked it. It was when PF Chang. PF Chang was really big. So we wanted to try lettuce wraps and see what the reaction was. Only sold like 3.
Right.
Last week we had lettuce wraps on the menu again and we sold 100. So we were just a little bit ahead of our time. Right. So we're able to throw those in and really watch the patterns, talk to the residents, get those trends, and really start developing and expanding people's palates.
One thing that came to my mind when you said that story, because it kind of goes to show you what goes on in this industry and what's happening. We have to understand that the demographics in senior living communities is changing very rapidly. So that you earlier talked about, the scoop and plop, technique. It's still happening in some skilled nursing, but for the most part, the younger demographics of, say, the baby boomers, people in their 60s and 70s, they won't eat like that. And so now the opportunity for food and beverage professionals is to rise to that occasion and get creative and show them things that are coming from other industry partners that are out there in hospitality.
Right, as we've grown throughout our strategic plan here at John Knox, as I mentioned, we had the 4 restaurants to start with. The newest restaurant, we've really been able to add some international flavors. If you go to jkvlife.org, you can see all of our menus, and you can see Metropolitan's menu where we have lamb chops, we have certified Angus beef steaks, we have things that have great flavor, tandoori chicken, all kinds of these real powerful flavors. And when you think, retirement communities, you think very bland. That's not the case anymore. Right. It's all about variety, trying to keep some things middle of the road, because of course we have those residents that say the chicken noodle soup is too salty. At the same time, their guests may say it's not salty enough, it's too bland. Right. So we really have to find those balances and offer that variety, and it's a challenge, but it's a great challenge that our culinary team really enjoys.
Yeah, it's interesting, and that old saying, variety is the spice of life, and I think here in a community, particularly this large, and then having seven venues that people can go to, or is it 9?
9.
Sorry, 9
9
venues.
If you count the 2 in Skill.
Right. It must be really nice for the residents to be able to experience all these different types of cuisines.
Absolutely. They really, for the majority, they really enjoy that variety. And what our biggest challenge is, we're spread out through our campus. Many communities have their restaurants all together. We made a conscious decision to spread them out to help keep people moving throughout the community and to keep that buzz everywhere. And so people tend to be comfortable in their restaurant. So it's really a challenge for us, for those few that want to look at it as their neighborhood restaurant, to get them to experience and try other areas.
Right. In terms of feedback and wants and needs of the residents, is there any talk about like sustainabilities and clean food and all that kind of stuff? And what's happening? Because we hear that in the restaurant business, it's really big. So what's happening?
So one of our programs that we partner with is called Casey Can Compost. And it's a local company that will come pick up all of our compost waste. So any bio waste in the restaurants, they'll pick up, and they have a company that will compost it and bring that out to the community. And the residents are really behind it. We're looking to be able to expand it so that in their homes they can compost and add to that as well. Oh, nice. But the residents are really behind it. One of our other big future plans that I'm really interested in, and I know our president Dan Rexroth is as well, we want to do hydroponics as well as incorporate aquaponics. Yes. So basically that's a soilless garden. Basically it's all vertical and it's self-sustaining, so we can supply all of the produce we will need for all of our concepts in-house. And then you basically build a pond or a tank underneath it and grow tilapia or another kind of fish that can feed off the nutrients of the plants. The plants feed off the nutrients from the fish, and then we can harvest the fish and process it ourselves to have that whole cycle.
So let's dive into that. So in terms of like future opportunities, so would you say this is a big endeavor? This sounds very exciting.
It's a huge endeavor, and we've researched and looked into some grant opportunities, some other partnerships with companies that do this as well, to try and set that standard. All the pieces haven't quite come together, but it's still out there, and I'm hoping within the next 4, 5, 6 years, we'll really be able to make this come to fruition. Being a campus of about 300 acres now, we have a resident garden. So one of my short-term goals is to really help them become GAP certified so that we can use their produce in the restaurants as well. So that would probably be the first step of this vertical garden, and I'm hoping to be able to do that within this year. There is a large community, life care community organization, and Dan, our president, thankfully brought me on a trip to Pennsylvania when dining was the focus. And a community out there had a huge plot. I think it may have been about an acre large. They had a couple concepts that they have this hydroponics that they do, and so that's where that concept started. So I would imagine on a piece of our property that we have here, we have a huge kind of greenhouse, if you will, where we can grow some things in pots or what have you. But also the main part of that would be the hydroponics, where it's these big tubes that have the water that will cycle through. And so that's what it would somewhat look like. And then you basically have the rain collection that goes around the building that would go to a tank underneath the building. And that's where you would have the fish living that would feed off, the carbon and what have you of the plants, and vice versa. So that's what it would look like.
I mean, I think that's incredibly exciting, and I wish you luck with all that. I would love to be able to see that come to fruition and see it. I do think, with everything we've learned over the last few years between, people's needs and the type of foods they want to eat as they get older, and where that's moving, coming out of a post-COVID situation, it demonstrated that some of our supply chain isn't quite up to speed. And then we're also, the idea that we want to bring fresh produce closer to where it's going to be consumed versus, shipping in from other countries or other parts of coming out of California to go to Massachusetts or, Florida up to Wyoming or whatever, to bring growing closer. And I think that's very interesting that you're getting on top of that.
Absolutely. I think it's a great opportunity. We would absolutely involve our residents in that project and have them have volunteers or what have you to maintain that. But to be able to supply our own produce, I think would be incredible. The freshness, the nutrients, it's better for our residents, and we'd have more control over the quality and
I, from a culinary point of view, the chefs, I'm sure, the creativity that would evolve from that would just be amazing.
Yes, absolutely. I mean, two of our chefs introduced us to microgreens. That was something, I do not have a culinary background other than my industry work and kind of hands-on training.
Right.
So Chef Roderick, Chef Tim, the other chefs that we have working here, we have a team, they've really been able to expand the palettes and the opportunity to bring some of these new flavors and spices. And I think that doing this hydroponics will really just blow it up and really offer a wider variety than what we're already doing.
Now, in terms of other sustainable acts and things, are you using, like, say local farms for eggs and chicken and beef and other things like that?
We really aren't. Here in the Midwest, it is quite a bit of a challenge. It's very seasonal, so you don't have that sustainability to do it year round. And that's one of the reasons I want to find the pieces that we can do ourselves so that we have that availability. We try and partner with local companies as much as we can. There was a cattle company that was local that we were using for a while. Unfortunately, they went out of business. So we don't have them anymore. We try and buy regional products as much as we can.
Sure.
So the pork that we use and some of the beef that we use is within the region, so Iowa, Nebraska. But it's hard to do that in the Midwest, and we haven't found good, reliable sources to really be able to do that at a cost. Because we're nonprofit, we still have to make sure we only lose so much, because the whole goal is to break even.
Well, I hope, again, coming out of in a post-pandemic situation, I think, at least what I've been reading, I think we're going to see more of that, and hopefully you're going to see more opportunities, even here in the Midwest.
I'm sure we will, and we've seen that over the years, that it's growing and that the availability is definitely expanding.
Right.
And here at John Knox, I'm again very thankful. Our team really tries to stay on the cutting edge and help set the trends.
Right.
So I'm looking forward to the future.
What does your department contribute to, the sales activity and marketing activity for a senior living community?
Our department has a lot to do with it. So let's break it down a little bit.
Yeah.
There are 3 things people have to do every day.
Right.
Only three things. We have to sleep, we have to use the restroom,
Right.
and we have to eat.
Correct.
So food really becomes the center point, especially as you get a little bit older and you're maybe not feeling as well, or you're starting to slow down, or you're retired. Food really becomes the center point. So by offering fresh, quality, pretty presentation, great service, friendly smiles, we really are the cornerstone of marketing. Our marketing team and the dining team work very closely together. We plan great luncheons that are based off our menu items so that we can really allow prospective residents a true feel and taste, no pun intended, well, pun intended, a true taste of what we have to offer here at John Knox Village.
Yeah, it's awesome. I mean, I really, one of the, my personal missions is to really just bring out to ownership and developers and others that food service is a revenue center. And, and there's really no reason it should run at a loss. I mean, if you're being creative and open to ideas, there's enough technology, enough bright ideas out there where it can either be a break even or even be a revenue. But more importantly, it helps with overall occupancy.
Right, and actually the way that we price our menus here, we try and be about a third less than a regular retail restaurant would be for a similar item.
Right.
So we try and compare apples to apples and be about a third less. We also look at about a 25% food cost or menu price cost is where we want it to be, which is a little bit off from the industry standard. Now our labor is a lot higher because we don't have the wide hours. So we do run at a budgeted, planned loss for dining services. We also understand that there's dining credit that the residents get as part of their service package, which it's not revenue, it's not cash, so it's basically coupons that they can use within limits, but pretty much how they want. So we're not looking to even really break even, but everything is planned, and we really look at that quality to bring more people in, because our overall goal is to enrich lives and build community. And to do that, dining is a cornerstone to bring people in and continue to grow our community together.
Right. What would you say to people that are interested in looking at this part of the market? So if someone's listening to us right now who, let's say, is in retail or is in the restaurant business or hotel business, what would you tell them about senior living and what the opportunities are?
I would tell them to forget what they learned when they were young about what a nursing home smells like, looks like, and feels like. Right. The industry has really moved away from that on the skilled level, not to mention independent living. It's a whole new ball game. Right. And you have the ability and opportunity to be creative, to set the trends, to do what you want to do and really be in charge of your own career path. Right. There is a lot of opportunities. It is family friendly. The benefits are great. We get 5 weeks vacation and actually have the opportunity to use them. And when I say we, it's all full-time associates. Right. Dishwashing, landscaping, all of that. The benefits are great. It really is not anything that I came in thinking it was going to be, and it's so much more, and it just continues to get better each year. And
talk about a little bit about career development, in this industry, where people, can come in and where they can expect to go.
Man, it's really up to that individual. Yeah. I have a number of high schoolers that have been with us all through their college career, and then they go off and do their career path in another industry. One of the benefits, we partner here, and there's opportunity all over the place to partner with other culinary programs. So we help the community college with their chef apprenticeship program. It's a certified ACF sous chef certification. We've graduated 5 or 6 people through that program. In fact, our sous chef over at Courtyard Cafe, he's starting a catfish growing company right now. And moving on, but after he graduated a couple years back, he became our assistant kitchen manager, sous chef. We have cooks here that came over from Houlihan's that are working their way up the ladder. Rainford Panak over at Places came in from Jamaica. and started as a cook, and he's now the kitchen manager over at Places Restaurant. You can really take your career path as far or in whatever direction you want in this industry.
I think that's an important thing that people really need to understand, that senior living just in the last, say, even 10 years has really shifted, the way they're doing business. And, particularly when you have like hotel companies getting into this space and other developers getting into it, who might be, lifestyle communities in themselves, maybe from, country club type settings. And they're bringing that into this industry. So from, to your point, we're not looking at a clinical situation anymore, like back in the days, how skilled nursing was viewed. Now it's truly a hospitality environment.
It is. Even at our skilled level, we have a full menu available for our residents.
Right.
And that menu can be geared or altered based on their dietary needs, of course, because that's what we need to do, and that's the goal, is to keep residents healthy. But they have an opportunity to order off the menu.
Yeah.
It's no longer you have this choice or that choice, or gosh forbid, this is your only choice.
Right.
Which is what it used to be back in the day. This industry has really changed and adapted, and continues to do so with talented people.
Right. I think there was a point where I think the viewpoint was it was a clinically based activity to sustain people with nutrition and whatnot, without really considering the experience of eating and the pleasure of eating, and what it means to be together in a community eat. Whereas now I believe ownership and leadership is starting to recognize the fact that, regardless of our age, we want to have great food, we want to have a great experience, and more importantly, we need to have choice.
Absolutely. Even with the mechanical softs and the purees, it used to be you just throw it in a blender, add some thickener to it, and send it out. It's completely changed. And with IDDS coming on board and us moving in that direction, flavor, consistency, texture is important for all of our residents. And that, again, really leads to opportunity to be creative and really give back to the world and to the residents, and care for our elderly as we should.
Recently, the Centers for Medicaid, Medicare, shifted a lot and changed a lot of their regulations. They had been in place for like 25 years. And one of the biggest things that I saw when it shifted was the recognition that the resident was in charge of their meal, not the clinicians and the staff. So, choice and dignity and treating people like adults that can make a decision for themselves, which they are, they should be able to say, no, I don't want to have that. I want to have something else, And I think that was from we all get a little nervous and people kind of worry about regulation. But in this case, they were spot on.
Absolutely. Another funny resident story. In assisted living, they can order whatever they want, of course. And we had one resident that every dinner would have 5 ice cream drumsticks. And, we try and encourage him to have some protein, to do some different things. And his answer always was, I'm 90 years old. I'm going to eat what I want to eat when I want to eat it. Darn it. This is what I want. Right.
Bravo.
Bravo. Enjoy.
Exactly. I'd like to ask you about the Pineapple Academy. And for full disclosure, your organization was the first independent living, assisted living who actually was our client. And so we've leaned on you for your feedback and encouragement and ideas and thoughts. But what was it that you saw, having been in the industry now, that what the value of a program like a Pineapple Academy could bring?
The value is definitely there. The training that we had, and in industry-wide, all throughout my career, training pretty much was on-the-job training.
Right.
So, we would do the 3 steps where the trainee would follow the person in the job. Then once they're comfortable there, the trainee would do the job with the person telling them what to do, and then you reverse it, where the person in the job would follow the trainee as they do it. And that's great training, and it works, but it was still missing a piece. You need that reinforcement. When I started with John Knox Village, we have an online training platform that's pretty good, and we have some required training that you typically wouldn't have outside of healthcare, bloodborne pathogens and that kind of thing. But it was death by PowerPoint. And it just really wasn't engaging. No one looked forward to doing it. It was repetitive. Just wasn't really good training. What got me so excited about Pineapple Academy, it was live action videos, it was coursework, it's certification. The employees feel good when they complete it. No matter your skill level, you always walk away with a tidbit of knowledge. It really is great, well put together training, and it keeps the staff engaged, and it reinforces what we're doing. The piece that really is good is that certification, that once that person takes that training and answers and passes the questions at the end, they have to do a skill training. And that's a piece that was always missing from true training unless you developed it yourself. So here the manager will watch them do whatever the skill set is and make sure they have their bullet points from Pineapple of what they need to achieve and hit. And it's just very rewarding. And on top of it, as Pineapple continues to grow in the industry, the staff person, although we never want anyone to leave, but we know this industry, people leave jobs. They'll be able to take that certification with them and put that on their resume that they are certified in roasting, Pineapple certified. And I think that's really where the industry is going to continue to go, is looking for these skill sets and those specialties. And Pineapple is just engaging and is really poignant when it comes to that.
So in terms of, I mean, my own experience is exactly what you just said. A lot of times what you're seeing is that the new people are following the more senior people that are there. And I think sometimes management, though, is under the impression that because someone's been there a long time, they might, that they're going to do it the way, we want them to do it. But that's not always the case, is it?
What I found is, as I was in place as a manager, that training actually did get watered down. People would teach them shortcuts that we didn't necessarily want them to take, or the easy way, or just the wrong way, and management didn't always catch it. And what Pineapple really does, it shows them the right way to do things, and it's not all about cooking. The training in Pineapple covers how to greet a table, hospitality, cleanliness, how to wash hands. And it really just re-emphasizes the right way to do it. And if you get in that cycle to have your staff get that refresher course at the right times, it just keeps it fresh for everyone and allows those senior people to train properly and keep those reminders fresh.
I think one of the things that has happened in industry, particularly in the restaurant industry, with the tightening of budgets and whatnot, that trainer position, which used to be a full-time job for someone that was training all staff, got kind of reduced to, well, let's have the supervisors do it. Oh, now let's have the leads do it. Let's have, and then suddenly it just comes down, you're a waiter, here's a new waiter, go with this waiter, and you're gonna, and now we're relying on that a line person, to train versus someone who is a skilled trainer or mentor.
Absolutely, and the quality of training that you provide is really going to keep someone a lot longer and happier because they're going to feel comfortable in their job. People tend to forget how much it costs to turn someone over. I mean, it's hundreds of thousands of dollars when you think about the advertising, the training, the uniforms, the cost to bring someone new in. One of the things I'm changing the mindset on, we always talk about turnover. We really need, as an industry, to change that and talk about retention, because it's not about turnover, it's about retention. It's about keeping the people happy, keeping them fulfilled, keeping them green and growing. And it all starts with training.
Let's talk about that a little bit, because there's a difference between pride in what you're doing, which is really, in my mind, is true happiness, versus just appeasing, as a manager, just appeasing the staff, wanting to do what they want to do because they think that's what's going to make them happy. You know what I mean?
I do, and that's funny that you use that term pride. One of the great things that we do here at John Knox is our Pride program, personal responsibility in developing excellence. And pride is really important for each individual to take towards their job function.
Right.
But it's also about the whole community as a whole and having pride for each other. Pride in, I mean, just everything is all about taking that pride. And again, it all starts with training and instilling that culture that we have to do the right things and know what the right things are. And as managers, it's our job to fill that toolbox with tools. It's up to the associate or that employee to use those tools, but it's all part of that training piece.
It's really interesting, reflecting back on, my career in management and seeing what other managers have done, or being as a consultant, seeing there's a misconception, I think, with some managers that we don't want to get them upset, or we don't want to lose people if we push them. But I think that viewpoint is really misdirected. I think the value in management and the value that we can give to people is the knowledge that we have to show people how to be competent and be successful in what they're doing. Yeah, I don't think we give employees enough credit sometimes to understand that, they're looking for a career also in many cases, and they have to take care of themselves, their family also, and the only way they're going to do that is by increasing their competency in their knowledge base in this business.
Absolutely, and I think that's a critical piece, again, that a lot of people tend to forget once they've been in industry, because we all tend to be complacent when we're in the same place or doing the same things. It's our job as managers to really teach people how to have a job. Right. And there's all this talk with minimum wage and having the life wages, and I say not every job is supposed to support a wage. Right. Those high schoolers, those first-time job holders, no matter your age, have to start somewhere where they can learn how to have a job. Right. And those aren't meant to sustain, that pay isn't meant to sustain a life or to support 2 children or what have you. Right. And it's our job as managers to remember that and teach the associates what the expectations are, hold them accountable, and be balanced in it all. Right. So we want to work with the high schooler who plays soccer and is involved with school. That's their number one priority. Right. And I emphasize that, and our team knows that. High school is their priority at that time, family first, high school, and then the job. So we have to find ways to be flexible and take care of them, ensuring that the job's taken care of too. So we can help them learn what those balances are as they continue their career path.
I'd like to talk a little bit about coaching and mentorship, because this is an area where I feel that it's really important as a manager at any level of management, whether you're a supervisor or a salary manager or a GM. To me, this is your number one job, is the development of your people. And so if you think doing paperwork is your job, then I think you have mission drift here. We need to get you back in the operation and realize this is really what's important. The numbers will take care of themselves if you take care of the business.
Absolutely. Harry, who I mentioned as my first true mentor, after grades came out, I didn't only have to share them with my parents, I shared it with him too, because I was working about 30 hours in high school a week, if not a little bit more. Workaholic trends. But industry trend. But Harry, I had to share my grades with him, and when they started to slip a little bit, he talked to me about that and finding that balance, and really helped me mentor how to find the balance between work and life and family. It was really critical in my career development, and I try and instill that in the managers of the different restaurants here, because we're dealing with a lot of young folks in the evening especially, and really trying to help them develop that too.
One of the pieces that we did put into the Pineapple Academy is, you mentioned this before, we call it a competency check. But really, the intent part, in my mind, it had 2 roles. One was, we want to ensure someone has the skills to do the job, because we don't want people to get hurt or not know what they're doing. But the other piece, which I think there's probably more for us to do on this, is to help develop managers to become mentors and give them a tool, starting with the Pineapple Academy, to do those competency checks, because this isn't about you judging that person or, oh, you didn't do it right, go back and do it. No, it's about getting you to engage with that staff member and observe it, help them, correct them, demonstrate till they get the competency. It's not about saying, oh, go back on the Pineapple Academy and watch this 6 more times. No, it's about you seeing, well, okay, you're almost there, but let me show you a little bit more, and try to get those supervisors and managers engaged with the staff. Absolutely,
and that's a management style that is going to be long-lasting, hopefully. Getting away from the days of the chef throwing the spatula across the kitchen. Man, I got stories about that too.
Right.
And those experiences that I had, in those negative environments really led me to instill those positive environment that I wanted and felt was important, and what's so important to keep staff and retention level.
Yeah, I think we're seeing a big culture change within the service industry, because I think they realize it's a little bit of a failed model. You cannot sustain a restaurant with 100% turnover every year. No. And you burn out your managers or think that managers are your solution to gaps in your schedule.
Yep. So I've worked at restaurants with as high as a 210% turnover rate, and that was the goal. That was it was accepted. That's the way it is. We have a turnover rate of 35% here, or I should say, a retention rate of, So it's important to look at that retention rate as opposed to the turnover rate. Right. So it has shifted a lot, and I hope it continues to shift that way.
Right. So if there's one thing that you would say to the Pineapple Academy that you'd like to see it go and where it can go, what would that be?
Man, that's a really tough question, Greg, because in all honesty, Pineapple Academy, watching it be able to grow from the beginning to where it is, they're expanding the coursework, they're expanding industry work. It's not just the restaurant business, it's going into housekeeping and management and all human resources. I want to continue that trend, and what I really enjoy, and I've talked to other Pineapple clients as well, what I really like about Pineapple is you are grounded and you're staying connected to your clientele. And it seems like you have a core group of people that, based on what the projects are, you're able to shift, and it's not always the same core, but you work really hard to get different perspectives so that you can meet all those needs. Right. So I just want to continue the trend and be a part of it as much as I can.
Well, and we hope that continues to be the case. Todd Hollander, thank you so much for your time today. It's been an absolute pleasure talking to you, and best of luck with everything.
Great. Thank you, Greg. It's always a pleasure to be here. Thank you.